So if you're like me and you're a software engineer or you're wanting to be a software engineer, then you probably had a lot of anxiety over the past 4 or 5 years based on how the job market has played out. In this short span of time, we've seen crazy hiring with salaries that are beyond comprehension and people just on a hiring frenzy and always jumping jobs and enjoying the software engineering lifestyle. And within the short span of the last 2 years, we've seen all of that come crashing down with layoffs after layoffs after layoffs until it's down to what we see today as far as the engineering job market. Nowadays, I think everyone has heard of someone being laid off, and this is not specific to software engineers, but like software jobs or the tech industry as a whole. We've all seen a ton of layoffs and a ton of people like having a hard time trying to find work. This has been a wild ride because I've been doing this for about 15 years and I've seen the boom and bust of a lot of this. And I wanted to take this time for this video to tell you where I think the industry is going, where we are today, and what I expect to see in the next 3 to 6 months for the software job market. And by the end of this video, I hope you have more information and knowledge about how this industry works, and it can also provide some insight of how you can feel about the job market for software related jobs. So I guess right off the bat, do I think that software jobs are going to come back? In short answer, yes, for the most part. And I'm going to tell you why in the next 3 sections of the video. There's 3 different parts I want to talk about today. The first one is interest rates. The second one is a conversation of when we build software, when businesses build software. And section 3 is I want to talk about canaries in the coal mine. It'll make sense at the end. So for the first section, I want to talk about interest rates. And I filmed this video in October 23rd of 2024. And earlier this year, maybe a month ago, the Federal Reserve has reduced interest rates by 50 basis points. And this is a huge thing because for the longest time, for about 4 or 5 years, they've been increasing rates and causing borrowing to be more expensive. Now, this Fed base rate, it influences a lot of the debt markets, including commercial loans, bank business loans. A lot of those things in the area are directly influenced by what the Fed sets the benchmark rate. This can also encourage what VC firms do to fund startups and try to build companies that way too. But what does that all mean? What does it have anything to do with software jobs? Well, this can influence how businesses are trying to expand their teams or grow new products or new business opportunities with software. And when they have access to debt and credit to be able to build teams up and try to invest in the future, this influences more spending and therefore more jobs in a lot of business areas. Now, if that doesn't make exact sense about how interest rates can influence software jobs directly, that's what leads me into the next part, the next section of this video. And that's when I talk about when do we actually build software? When is software built? And when are these jobs created? So let's talk about the next section is when we build software. Now, it's important to try to zoom out and think in the term of a business and how and when we build software. And if you think about it, it's not a steady stream. We're just building, and we're always building software. Unfortunately, it's more of kind of a weighted timeline. So with this weighted timeline, that means is that when new projects, greenfield projects are built, that's usually at the beginning. So there's a big investment to get something off the ground and find your way to the minimum viable product. Now, minimum viable product is something that you probably have heard, MVP. Now, the idea is that you're supposed to be building a ton at the beginning of a project to get to the point where it's usable by real users and the business. Now, at some point, you want to keep improving, yes, but at some point, maybe a year or 2 years down the road, you will have satisfied most of the things that you want to build for this software project, whether that's internal for a big business or that's a startup, for example. At some point, you're going to have checked most of the boxes, and you won't need that level of effort that you did to build everything up. Relax a little bit and you'll get into the next phase of software. The next phase is the maintenance mode. That's when you're maintaining bugs, you're trying to improve things a little bit, trying to make things scale a little bit more, but it's not the amount of work and effort as it was to build it up in the first place. That's usually where the bulk of software is built, is in the beginning. So if you expand on that idea, is that most software jobs are found when a company is building something new, like they're rewriting an existing system to make it better, or it's a startup that's trying to introduce themselves into the market so that they can satisfy some concerns or problems. It's the beginning, new projects, it's new startups, it's new new endeavors is when the bulk of like software jobs are created. So like I was mentioning earlier about interest rates, when there's more access to credit and companies are allowed to borrow more to try to expand their business, when debt is cheaper, then that's a great thing for software because that encourages companies to actually build more in that area. But it also goes deeper than that because when it comes to like the US tax code, when a company is trying to build software, build something brand new, they have more they are tax incentivized to spend money on new endeavors, and it's more expensive and taxes are heavier on when you're maintaining existing systems. When it's like R&D or when it's like bringing out a brand new idea and building it up from the ground up, when it's greenfield, the company has to pay less taxes on that than it does when it's maintaining the old legacy stuff. Even though that's the one running the business and that's the one working at the time, that is more expensive when you're spending those dollars there versus building something new. So companies are encouraged to build new things. So having said that, me mentioning that the Fed has cut rates already, so you would say, well, why aren't we having jobs yet? What's the deal? Why aren't we seeing any jobs now? Because I'm personally having a hard time trying to find a job. I was laid off earlier this year, and throughout this interest rate cut, I haven't seen a lot of jobs come out. Like, what's the deal, Cody? And of course, that brings us into the final section, is talking about canaries in the coal mine. So a lot of you maybe have heard of the term canaries in the coal mine, but if you haven't, it's when coal miners back in the day, there was a lot of risk of like carbon monoxide pooling up in these caves, and miners would go in and start working and run out of air and die. So a way they solved this is they put canaries into the coal mine, and when the birds started dying, they knew that there was too much carbon dioxide and they would get their miners out of there. The canaries would be the first ones to know whether something is dangerous. Cody, stop talking about birds and tell me about software. So what I'm trying to say is that the software industry has their own canaries. They're called contractors, consultants, freelancers. These are our canaries for both the good and bad. And I'm personally really dialed in on this kind of concept because I'm a freelancer myself. I've been doing freelance full-time for about 3 years now. And this is something that I've seen happen very true in the past 3 years. So you're probably asking yourself, what does this mean and what does that actually look like? So if we go back to this Fred diagram of the software jobs that were posted on Indeed, is if we look at this huge ramp up and this huge ramp down, if we think about when things were ramping down, when businesses are actually struggling and they need to find a way to cut staff or cut payroll and reduce spending, the first people to go are consultants, freelancers, and contractors. So we're the canaries that were dying in the coal mines of the software world before they actually take measures to lay off staff. Contractors are always the first to go. So what that meant is when you see this timeline of this thing sloping down, that's when I had lots of friends that are contractors that were also getting their jobs cut before the full-time people were getting cut. So we were the first ones to be let go, and we're the first ones to know that things are turning south as far as the industry goes. But if we think about it the other way, there's two ways up this hill. Also, when the hill ramps up, companies aren't that excited to bring on full-time staff because that's part of payroll, and that's a harder thing to have someone come on and be fired later. So when people get some more money and have more optimism about what the future looks like, they start hiring consultants and contractors and freelancers. And this is another reason why I think the software jobs are going to start coming back, is because for the past month or so, within my network of agencies and consultancies that I've talked to, other contractors that are trying to find work right now, work is starting to pick up. I'm getting emails for work that I can't take anymore because I have a job and I have plenty of stuff that I need to do, but more work is coming in and more contracts are being released into agencies and consultancies. And that's a good signal for the industry as businesses want to spend more money to build new things. And in my experience, it's only a matter of time before these companies start hiring full-time people or even just like contractors as people are able to have more optimism about building their businesses and their software projects. So this feels exciting and it makes me very hopeful for 2025 as I think that more jobs will start coming in as businesses want to start growing again. So that's my take. That's how I think the job market for software jobs is going to be taking a turn for the last couple months of 2024 and as we go to 2025. If you like this video, you probably will like my LinkedIn video as I talk about the job market and how LinkedIn has influenced it. And also, if you've made it this far in this video, go ahead and put a bird emoji, kind of like a canary, into the comments, and I will comment to you directly and thank you for watching the whole thing. I really appreciate all the support and time you guys take to hear me talk about these kind of things. So leave me a comment. I always respond. And thank you guys for taking the time. And I'll see you around the next one. See ya.